So in terms of key steps, I don't think any of these things will be a surprise for folks here, but often I think when folks are looking, they'll find a potential connection and then occasionally not be ready with a resume or even some sort of basic template of a cover letter that they can modify. Sometimes, depending on your field, you need to have some sort of portfolio. So like a writing sample, you want to have that on hand. Or if you work in art or architecture, having some of your samples ready to go. If there's some sort of past history, you want to make sure to have that. References, it's great to line up as many of those in advance as you can, because what you don't want to do is get an offer and then have to get back with your references and not have kind of folks who are waiting. There's also, before I move on to LinkedIn, I would say with resumes, it is important to tailor resumes to the role as much as you can. Which does mean some editing. I used to have a bunch of resumes I just sent out over and over. And on LinkedIn specifically, they have this thing called Easy Apply, and you might see that on Indeed or other places like that. It's very tempting, and I've certainly hit that button myself with some jobs. And if you're just trying to search, and let's say you're getting unemployment and you need to make sure you have 2 in a week, that's another possibility too. But the tailored resume that speaks specifically to the job, I think, is often key. Many of you may have been federal employees or worked there. USA Jobs is a really challenging system, and I could probably do a whole session just on that. But often I've been on the other side of doing those job hunts when I was a federal employee, and often people didn't even look at the cover letter. They were just very focused on the resume and focused on, does the person have the skills? And certainly the HR folks often are looking for those keywords. So making sure you've taken the time that your resume matches up with the job description. Ron?
I just wanted to point out one of the things we taught through 40 Plus was to tailor the resume. And I thought I had a well-tailored resume, but after I stopped looking for work, I realized that, I wanted to show that, I had a 30 plus years of experience, and I wanted to show, a lot of what I did. Whereas I might have 12 things listed, and only 3 of them were really pertinent to the, to what they were looking for. And what I should have done is taken 9 of them out, shown 3, and shrunk my resume down to 1 page. Because the things I've been reading since then are like, when you put too much in there, it confuses people, and what they tend to remember most is the last thing they read, which on a resume is usually what you consider your least important thing. So you might make good points in the first 3. Exactly. I need that. I need that. And the 4th thing is something like, oh, I don't need that. And then what you've left them with is, this is the person that has something I don't need, rather than this is the person that matches up really well. Mm-hmm. So that's something I learned too late.
Thank you so much, Ron, for chiming in with that. That's a great point. I also appreciate what you said in the chat about, every person you meet is someone who could make another connection. Certainly there's sometimes people who wanted to hire me, but they couldn't at the time, but they knew someone else who might be interested, or they certainly have held onto my resume and gotten back to me a few months later and say, oh, actually, we need you for this, or we need you for that. So like making those positive impressions. Yes, Lisa, I totally agree about LinkedIn. I don't think that like jobs posted on LinkedIn where within 6 to 9 hours there's 200 applicants is a great way to get a job. Certainly not. I think often you need to know that the hiring person before they even post the job. That's the ideal situation, which is a lot of, it's difficult and it's a lot of networking. But if you know somewhere you really want to work, I know someone who lived in Portland, and he really wanted to work at Nike. And he did something like 35 informational interviews with people who worked at Nike, just saying, I'm interested in working here. I want to do this. And eventually he got a job there, right? Like, because he was at the top of mind for pretty much everyone in that kind of niche, and, you know, has a successful career there. So if you really know a specific place you want to work, some of that networking is great, because it can be very daunting to just put your resume out there. So I put these things on here because they're sort of the basics. It is important to have, I think, in most industries, a LinkedIn profile, but it doesn't mean that that's where you have to find the job.